Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of coverage of the Premodern Super Gauntlet 2021. I'm Michael Hoyp. I'm joined today by Jared Doucette. Say hi, Jared.
Hi, Jared.
All right, so we have a matchup between the angry HermitNought deck, Naughty Hermit, whatever you want to call it, against the Pox deck. Mike Arnold is piloting the Naughty Hermit deck. This is a deck that I think you have some experience playing, at least maybe
Yep.
earlier iterations. Do you want to talk about what this deck is doing and what you can expect out of it?
Sure. I actually just played this almost exact list. I talked with Mike Arnold about it pretty often. I almost played this exact list in this most recent monthly, and I think we're only off by like maybe a card. Like he might have like one more. I think he has one more land and then one less unmask or something. But basically, it goes from being a game one angry, or I guess you could call it it's a Hermit Druid deck where you're dumping the entire library into the graveyard with the Hermit Druid, and then you're going to reanimate the Sutured Ghoul and making it big by taking using the Dreadnoughts and other creatures, kind of making it hate Dragon Breath and killing them all in one shot. Very cool deck, very cool. I think Flint actually played a very successful version of this. Geez, probably a year and a half, if not more ago. At this point, I think it was the first. It was the first Spring Fling. I think I can't remember, but very cool deck. And then it has the option of kind of boarding into um, a two combo deck in the sideboard game. Stifle. So you'll see that you got the Stifles, the Vision Charms, and so you can kind of like, if they bring in the Graveyard Hate, you can kind of switch to being a Stifle Knot deck that doesn't care about the Graveyard Hate. So it has a nice, it's got a good game one deck. It's not just Graveyard Hate. And then game two, it can kind of like, be like, okay, which combo is going to, which I think is a really cool way to kind of present this deck.
Yeah, I do like the Hermit Druid decks in a lot of the game one scenarios, and then I do like how this deck kind of circumvents the idea of if someone is going all in on Graveyard Hate, I'm just going to have the ability to play a Dreadnought off of Stifle or Vision Charm, and I do like the way to kind of fight that, combat, keep your opponent guessing, or like kind of just keep them on their toes to present different threats that they might not have the right answers for.
So now some people play it where game one, they have both combos in the same deck, which I think is interesting because it gives you more options game one. But the Hermit Druid deck should be such a very good game one deck. It has the potential to win on turn two. It has that ability, and it can do it. More often turn three or four is it really doing its thing. But it's a very good game one deck because it so quickly and it's hard to interact with outside of just killing the Hermit Druid, which is its weakest kind of like part. But I mean, you have good disruption with fast disruption with Duress, Unmask, and actually the Cabal Therapy is one of the more important parts of the deck that I'm sure we'll get into when the match goes on, which is one of the cool things with the Cabal Therapy. But anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. It does something super broken, and it's just one of those combo decks that's just a blast to see work when it does its thing.
All right, so Mike is up against Peter with the Poxless Pox. I guess I might call this deck the Pit Rack deck. But what this
Or the
deck is,
Spud, or whatever you want to call it.
yes,
Yeah,
Spud. This version.
it has three plague spitters up in
Okay,
the top
okay,
left.
all right. I
Yeah.
was say from the visual image, I couldn't tell. But what this deck is trying to do is control the game in terms of getting a bottomless pit out in play. That makes a player discard a card at random every upkeep, and then if it can hold off a board presence with cards like Innocent Blood or Diabolic Edict, then it can kind of slow things down and then take over the game by the rack ultimately will deal a lot of damage, or just like a card like Curse Scroll can like either control the board or deal damage to the player if the scenario is right. So a mid-rangey control mono black deck that we've seen. I think earlier versions this deck had the card Pox in it, but
Mm-hmm.
when people played
It was
they've discovered that that was the weakest card in the 60, so they
by
have
far.
let that card go. So that is the name of Poxless Pox. I'll call it Pit Rack, but
Yeah.
that is what Peter's playing. So what do you think is like the main interactions? I guess like how does this line up against the Hermit Druid deck that we see?
I mean, my guess is that this is going to be a nightmare matchup for like the deck because it's got discard interaction, it's got creature interaction, with the funeral charms and the innocent bloods and the diabolic kill, a Hermit Druid pretty efficiently. Not to mention Plague Spit. If you land a Plague Spit, you can't even get out there, Hermit Druid. You can't do anything with it. Unless they can shallow grave it and get, if they got a ton of mana. But like that's unlikely. But this deck is going to be really good at top decking. That's what I'm going to do. It wants to put both people on 0 cards and say, all right, I'm going to have a bunch of cheap stuff. I'm going to have lands that I can just play out. And I'm going to have, racks that are just going to keep, chipping you away. Like, I think this deck is awesome. It doesn't look like much, but it definitely does its thing. And I'm really excited. I've played this once, and I thought this deck, it was a lot of fun to play. It just interacts very well with creatures and hands. So if you're trying to do anything kind of fancy, then you're not going to have much time because they're not going to leave many cards in hand.
All right, so I will jump over to the game. We have Mike playing the HermitNought deck, while Peter is playing the Pit Rack deck. I know Peter had mulliganed. I think it might have been twice, but I'm not 100% sure. So we got things going. I know the image is a little bit choppy, but we'll have to deal with that. So we have a turn 1 Unmask, where Unmask is removing the Plague Spitter and shows a hand that Mike has the Underground River, a Reanimate, an Exhume, a Worldly Tutor, 2 Hermit Druids, and an Unmask. So I guess the thing to note is there's only 1 land from Mike's deck.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he kept this hand, honestly.
So 1 Hermit Druid is taken. So Peter then responds with a Swamp and a Dark Ritual to turn 1 the Bottomless Pit. So Mike's got 6 cards in hand, and he's going to discard one of them at random. So Bottomless Pit is doing the thing that it does. And like the one thing that like this card's really good against the I don't know if I want to say like the smart decks, but like the decks that you need to like plan turns ahead. So
absolutely.
It makes things really difficult because obviously the card is at random, so it's hard to figure out what's going to happen in the future if you could just be discarding the card that you're really relying upon casting like turn 3 or 4. So
okay, what did we lose this time? Oh, the other Hermit Druid. That's not good.
Yeah, that seems pretty unfortunate from Mike's perspective. So
yeah. Oh, we got the second land. Okay, now you just need to top deck your 3rd Hermit Druid. Oh, he zooms it. That works. Okay, we're in business. All right, as long as this isn't Funeral Charm, or we need a Funeral Charm or Innocent Blood. Otherwise, and he still needs the Reanimate in his hand. Okay, interesting.
Curse Scroll is the answer from Peter, but without a second land drop, I don't think that is effective enough or like efficient enough. I don't think it's going to come online, and because the Hermit Druid is like very, very quick and dealing a lethal amount of damage.
Okay, did he attack? Oh my god, he attacked for 1. That's wild. That's surprising. I don't understand why he would do that. He had a chance to at the end of the turn. He could have at the end of turn he could have done the Hermit Druid thing, and then Krosan Reclamation in his upkeep, and then put 2 Reanimates on into his library, and probably could have just gone off that turn, unless he was worried about something. But he tapped out.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the thought is. So a Duress from Peter took a redundant Worldly Tutor, and then so now we're at the Bottomless Pit taking out the other one, and there is the Rack in play. So that is, I guess, the clock from the Pit Rack deck, but from this position with enough mana, I think you should be able to flashback Krosan Reclamation and then Exhume and be able to take things down.
Well, unfortunately, he tapped his Underground River to get green mana somehow. I don't know how he did that. But, okay, so let's City Browse. Yeah, he could have done this at the end of his put the graveyard into the, and then in the upkeep use the Krosan Reclamation, or even at the end of the turn, because I don't think he has any ways to interact with his graveyard. This is what he's doing. He should be getting the Krosan Reclamation. There it is. He's gonna put 2 Reanimates that'll basically become his library. So when he goes to his draw strip, he definitely gets one, and then he can reanimate the Sutured Ghoul and then smash in for the win. I was going to Shallow Grave. One of the interesting things. What? Okay. What do you have?
Well, I guess with the Suture or the Shallow Grave, just like putting a Sutured Ghoul in play should be enough.
Well, one of the things is that must have been at the end of the turn. Then I wasn't sure what phase we were in at that point. So maybe that was the end of Peter's turn. Turn, I don't know, 4 or 5. So that wasn't during the upkeep. I would have figured he would have gone for the reanimate. Because one of the interesting things about Shallow Grave is that you can, well, when you Hermit Druid, you reveal the cards, so you actually can change the order of them, which seems weird. It's not like it goes one at a time in the graveyard. So you can actually kind of play around with the top of what the top card in your graveyard is. When you make it the rule, obviously, Shallow Grave. So, do we have sideboards we can look at? Yeah.
Yes. So let's look at the Poxless Pox deck. So there's Planar Voids, Dystopia, Engineered Plague, more Unmasks, Phyrexian Negator, and Spinning Darkness. Are there any cards that are interesting from the sideboard that you're thinking you want to bring in?
Well, all the ones you want to bring in, right, require a Dark Ritual, basically. I mean, Planifor looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, that's a card that seems like could come down early and really make an impact on how the game plays out.
And this is also open deck list, right?
Yes, the players do know what the players are up against, so
Okay.
yes.
So I think Plan of Void would definitely shut down the Hermit Druid part of the deck. The other part with its Stifle and Dreadnought, you definitely keeping Innocent Blood for Dreadnought and also for Hermit Druid. I mean, Unmask would seem pretty good, so you can get targeted, kind of, and fast enough. I mean, Negator's a nice clock, but their clock is faster because if they just combo off. Cards that I'm looking at that aren't doing much, I would say, are.
I mean, all the cards seem like relatively fine. Like Curse Scroll is like the slowest card.
Yeah, that would be one of the, maybe cut a couple of those or something.
Plague Spitter is probably maybe a card that you can cut.
Yeah, you could probably cut down to 2 of those. Again, everything in order to get rid of the Hermit part needs you really want a Dark Ritual to kind of do one of your things. Again, same Plague Splitter and Engineered Plague are basically match up. They're basically getting rid of the Hermit, but you have to be worried about the other part, which is probably coming in.
Yeah, so that is the biggest I think difference of the original iteration of the Hermit Druid deck was it was just focused on this graveyard combination, and since it realized that hey, I can just put these 12/12s in my deck, and they are really great food for a Sutured Ghoul, and
so good.
And then I have a sideboard plan. If they're going for a graveyard 8 plan, I can just Stifle or Vision Charm my 12/12 and just kill you that way. And I think that dimension makes the deck very dynamic and very difficult to play against, because it's very difficult to have a sideboard plan that answers both of those strategies. So.
Right, they're both susceptible to Swords to Plowshares and Innocent Blood. You know what I mean? And other than that, they kill those 2 kind of main creatures in Hermit Druid and the Dreadnought. But otherwise, they're pretty different ways. One's a graveyard, one's on the board. They both, obviously some, targeted discard like a Duress is going to be good against both, but depending on what their hand looks like. So this is This is basically the cat and mouse game that we're gonna play. So when I've been playing this deck for game 2, I bring in the like all 8 of the stifles basically, and the ninth, and then the dreadnought, right? So that's 9 cards that are definitely coming in. So the cards I'm looking to take out are like probably the unmasks. You probably want to leave Duress in. You cut down on a lot actually of the Hermit Druid comp. So I would cut it down to basically leaving like a shallow grave and maybe 2 reanimates. So again, the reanimates and the shallow grave does something different because it gives it haste itself. But I would leave the 2 reanimates to be able to do the Krosan Reclamation to make those the kind of cards you end up with after the Reclamation, after you do the Hermit Druid thing. So you can still leave that in there, but it's definitely going to make Plan A at this point, probably Stifle Dreadnought.
Yeah, I do agree. Like the first shallow grave was like super valuable in the deck that like can turn its deck upside down, and but I do think that like yes, that Mike will be looking to bring in the Vision Charms and the Stifles just to have that backup plan of just putting a Dreadnought into play. So,
right. The only problem with that is that the Stifle and the Dreadnought is terrible to try to combo when you have no cards in hand. You need 2 cards in your hand, right? So if the Bottomless Pit is doing its thing, you're not going to be able to do your thing. That's why you need to have the second option for that in order to do its thing.
sure.
Because you can just eventually play lands. If you're both top decking, play lands. You just play out the Hermit Druid, and again, you can do Hermit Druid can just win the game itself because with the Krosan Reclamation acts as like a tutor basically to find your, which is one of the coolest things about the deck. So I'm looking forward. I'm curious to see how this goes.
Yeah, the black deck does have some natural protection against like putting a 12/12 into play because there are cards like Innocent Blood and Diabolic Edict that are very good at answering that. So like when you're spending at least 2 cards, I mean it might even be more than that. Like when you're casting a card like Lim-Dul's Vault to like try and set things up, you're trying to put this 12/12 that is resolving, and if they're able to answer it with 1 card that's 1 mana or 1 card that's 2 mana, that gives it's definitely possible that the black deck can end up on top of that exchange.
Yeah, I think I don't think much changes, but I think now that you know what you're ready for game 2 for Pete. I think he should be able to. I wouldn't. I would take a hand that definitely has Innocent Blood. I mean that's the card I'm looking for because it answers both of the combo potentials pretty easily. Because this isn't normal. Like you don't have days. You don't have to worry about foil or something like that. Or a meddling mage, in this kind of build. He's basically throwing it out there fairly naked unless he Duress or Unmasked on the same turn or the turn before. So, if it's just gonna be out there, you're gonna be able to interact with it. No counter spells on the other side. So,
All right, so we have our players shuffling up. Looks
okay.
like definitely looks like Mike with the HermitNought deck is taking mulligan, and I think Peter might be keeping his hand. So,
Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, Mike does not want to mulligan against the discard deck, basically, but he needs his deck needs to do its combo as fast as possible, so you need to have it, basically.
yeah, you're gonna look at an opening hand, and if it doesn't do what you're trying to do quick enough, you're gonna have to send it back. But that definitely makes it more susceptible to discard spells. Cards like Innocent Blood or cards like Diabolic Edict are more powerful when your opponent is mulliganing. So
It's unlikely he's going to be able to do his thing twice. It's his if Mike does his thing, he has to, because for him to do it a second time, very unlikely.
okay.
But we'll see. It looks like he's got to be in the tank on this one. All right, he's down to 6. All right, what do you got, Pete?
Cabal Pit. That is probably not the card that you want to lead off with, but
All right, now what are you naming here? Are you naming Hermit Druid? Oh, he did. He got it.
yep, that would probably be my first name. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad he hit it because I didn't take notes on what they actually named. So I'm glad that the Hermit Druid was the card that was named.
So another card you see still in there is or in there now is Sylvan Safekeeper, which is a nice way to protect your combo too, and or your Hermit Druid specifically, because you can just once you're ready to do its thing, you don't really care too much about your lands. Be able to keep your Hermit Druid alive or your Sutured Ghoul really alive is really important. Oh, Ritual and Pit. Oh, yeah, good one. All right, well, he's the Worldly
Definitely a
Tutor.
good way to disrupt your opponent when you've got that Pit in play on early. So.
But this Druid's definitely coming in, because that's safe. That's going to put it safely on the top of the library.
Yep, yeah, definitely has a land. Oh, he's getting.
Okay.
Dreadnought.
Oh, this is a gamble.
Interesting.
Because literally, so that unknown card must be a Stifle or a Vision Charm. Like it has to be, right?
Because otherwise, I definitely agree that yes, it seems like you're going for the 75% chance that you discard one of the other cards and that you have the ability to play a 12/12.
Yeah, so only 25% chance you miss on this, but if you do, you lose.
Oh, you lose. A vision charm is discarded. Yeah, that makes the drawing the Dreadnought is a little bit awkward because of that.
Okay, and now that Pit's just going to keep doing its thing.
Yes, it definitely did its thing. That's for sure.
Yeah. Just sniped that thing right out of the hand. I mean, a bit unlucky for sure for Mike, but that is the odds and the variance of the game, especially when you do random.
I mean, that's part of the benefit of playing a card like Bottomless Pit is just it's difficult to play against because you don't know exactly what card's going to discard. It's hard to predict the future when things are random.
I think it might have been a little safer to probably maybe go for the I don't know. He probably felt pretty confident at 75%. Ooh, Chain of Smog. Bye-bye. Might as well send it. I mean, send it back. Yep, that's fine. This is a position that, Pete is more than happy to be in deck mode. He's got a 2/2, basically with Mistress Factory, and against your 1/1, take that race.
Sure.
He's probably even got threshold for the Cabal Pit, if he really wants to get rid of it. I guess he could keep it alive by sacking a land.
Sure, yeah. It might not be the best play for Peter, but he's got a Feudal Charm. So you got to make the decision of whether keep the creature or sacrifice the land. I think I might be inclined to sacrifice a land at that point, but
I think I would have given up that Gemstone Mine at that point. You got a good chance of finding more lands. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, but you're the beatdown plan now. Mistress Factory beatdown, like Garfield intended.
Good way to do things.
Yeah. So now, like I said, the Stifle Dreadnought is out of the question. You need 2 cards. You're never going to have 2 cards unless you naturalize Bottomless Pit. So he's really looking to get a Hermit Druid and keep it alive, right? Could have fired that off.
Yeah, and then as the turns go longer, Threshold's gonna turn on, and I guess he technically doesn't have a black source right now, but to activate the Cabal Pit. But I had to think that at that point he is gonna have it. So
there it is.
It seems very difficult for Mike to get out of this position. And this Mistress Factory, whilst it not a very efficient clock, but is doing work for the current board state.
Yeah. I think if I draw another land, I'm thinking about wastelanding, possibly. Yeah, I think I fire off a wasteland just to kind of keep him off balance. I would probably go for the blue source. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Gemstone Mine and Lotus Petal do the same thing.
Yeah, just more land from Mike. So.
Yep, that's fine. Deck for 2.
This Mistress Factory. Oh, I can't even keep up with this. All right, down to 9.
You're definitely better at keeping life totals than I am. terrible about it.
Right now, one player has 14 and the other one has 15. So I guess I will say the player is at 14. So
Yeah.
I know sometimes I get hung up about the life totals, and it's not really the most important thing. As kind of in this situation, Mike packs it up. He figures that this is a state that he cannot get out of. So we have an equalizing game 2. And we're going to go to game 3 to figure out who is the champion of this matchup between HermitNought and Pit Rack.
Yeah, I think Mike being on the play is going to be a huge benefit. That's for sure.
I mean, like, is there any hesitation? Like, even if you are able to assemble like a turn 1 Dreadnought, like, there's cards like Innocent Blood and Diabolic Edict. Like, does that make you nervous about like committing so many cards to try and put a 12 into play when one card can answer that?
I mean, yeah, obviously. I mean, but you Duress and Unmask are probably still around, so you probably kind of hope to clear the way with those. But other than that, you don't really have much interaction. Trying to do your thing as fast as possible. But yeah, he does have at least 5. Does he get another Diabolic Edict on the board? What was it? What the other? So he's got the 1 main
Bloods and 1. So it just looks like 5 copies of that effect.
So he's got 5 copies of that effect. And that's more than 4. you know.
But I mean, it definitely like is on your mind, but I mean, like it's difficult to like weigh those decisions when you're playing this deck. Like, I'm gonna commit all my resources basically to try and do this one thing, and like if they have 5 of 60 cards, then you don't necessarily just lose, but you're at a significant disadvantage. So it's difficult to do from the HermitNought perspective.
Because if you could do it, so if you do have the Lotus, right? Then you've basically given them, they need to have a 5 cards in their first 8 or 9, 9 cards that have an answer, right? So you get, I'm not the math guy, but like, that's not much time, but also, yeah, I wouldn't, if I was, Pete, I probably am looking for one of those 5 cards in order to, because that's the combo that, I have the hardest time interacting. Funeral Charm gets rid of Hermit Druid, and then so does even Plague Spitter. So doesn't, even the Cabal Pits, if you can get them online fast enough. So you have a few more options for that side of the combo. But I think you don't want to lose to the quick Innocent Blood or, the quick Stifle Knot if you can avoid it.
Right. So we will jump down to the match. Looks like the players are still shuffling up. We'll let them resolve their mulligans. So we have a even match at this point. We have Mike on the play with the HermitNought deck. Who do you think is the advantage in these post-sideboarded games?
I don't think... I mean, Mike has more options now because of the Stifle and the Dreadnoughts being put in. That's for sure. And I definitely think he keeps it in for game 3 because, he can't just, lose to Planar Void because that's probably in there just in case. So I think I think I like Pete's situation just because he is so disruptive. But then again, Mike can just, win the game, on the spot with a lot of different cards. Especially like it now that, I see Mike on the play, so he's going to be pretty low on cards.
Yeah. So Pete kind of has like the ability to prevent Mike from doing anything too quick, and if we get that past that point, then definitely the advantage is in Peter's hands. But I mean, you can't count the HermitNought deck out in any position because like the potential of either stripping the answer out of the opponent's hand and then resolving a 12/12, or just risking it and putting a 12/12 into play and hoping you don't have the answer is very powerful in any matchup. So
I guess Pete decided to take a mulligan now.
All right.
So he's going to be down at 6-2. It looks like that was He was in the tank for a while on that one, I guess.
Does that change your perspective at all? Do you think, like, does the Pit Rack deck do significantly worse with a mulligan, or do you think it's pretty comparable?
I think it's pretty comparable. It's not a combo deck, so um, there's a good amount of redundancy
Yeah,
as far as like the way it interacts.
I could definitely see like hands that you would just like send back this like this hand is fine, it like does some things, but like it could lose to certain situations from Mike's deck.
Right.
And I'm just gonna send it back and try and find a better six that deals with the
I mean,
threats.
I'm looking for if I'm Pete, I'm looking for Innocent Blood, Diabolic, Resting. I need to do something on turn one, And Mike is looking for his combo to do whatever he can as fast as possible, whichever combo he chooses. All right.
Mike is going to start with a.
It's got to be a Duress.
Cabal Therapy.
Cabal Therapy. Ooh, what do you name? What do you name? Probably I bet he's naming Innocent.
I mean, like yeah, Innocent Blood or like Bottomless Pit. I feel like the cards that I would name. It looks like.
Oh, name Dark Ritual.
Dark Ritual was the card that was named, and he does hit.
Fast.
So, all right. So.
Okay. He's a sniper. All right. Cabal Therapy right back at him. He's showing you black and blue, so maybe he Stifle Dreadnought. I think that's the one you lose to the most. I would say Dreadnought.
I think that would be my.
Oh yeah, Hermit Druid, man. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, both players are very keen on their connections with Cabal Therapy. They've hit on both of us. Yes, I think like. I guess it would depend on your hand, and you're kind of weak to Hermit Druid either way. So maybe.
But you have more answers to that.
Yeah.
You have less answers to the Hermit Druid.
All right. So from Peter's position, he's played a Duress and the Rack. So he is trying to get everything online where he's dealing damage with his low amount of cards in his opponent's hand.
I think. What do you take here? I think you just take Vision Charm, take that option away.
Yeah. I don't like the reactive card like Naturalize. I like am not too worried about.
No.
But
no, I think the advantage bar has to be pretty hard towards Pete right now. Nice. Okay. Do you pit?
Mishra's Factory is an interesting card because, like, all right, I guess now that pit comes down, it's a little less interesting. But like, I was gonna say, like, do you want to activate Mishra's Factory when you know your opponent has a Naturalize in hand? But the Bottomless Pit comes down, and Naturalize is the answer to it. So for the time being, Mike is able to build up his hand, which.
Was it the second one?
Definitely, you definitely need to build your hand up if you're going for the Dreadnought, Stifle, or Vision Charm combo. But with the Hermit Druid, it's not as important. Like you just need to cast the Hermit Druid and then have the available mana. So we do see an Engineered Plague. So I have to imagine this is on human or druid or something from preventing the Hermit Druid from staying in play. So
yeah, I don't think Hermit Druid is now a Phyrexian as well.
Yes. So. Yeah, creature types have been updated recently, but I don't think that is one of the things. Yes.
Okay. All right. Swinging with that factory? Yeah, let's get in there. Let's do the business. He has a whatever. Fine. That's fine. Whatever.
All right, I'll update the light totals. We're at 15 to 15.
It looks like he took 2 from the rack there, right? Now he has 3 cards again. All right.
Unmask pitching a Bottomless Pit. We see 2 Dreadnoughts and a Sylvan Safekeeper.
Oh boy. All right.
A Dreadnought is taken. Okay.
That was a Cabal Therapy yard for the record.
What was that?
Pete still has a Cabal Therapy in his yard, so he could, if he does get a factory or a spitter or something like that, he
Yeah,
could flash it
there's
back.
not too many creatures in Pete's deck, but
No,
yeah,
it's not.
he's doing the damage with the double rack that he has in play, so he's
Here
looking
it
to.
comes.
There is a Dreadnought and a Vision Charm, so Mike is able to find that combination through all this disruption. So there's a Funeral Charm that will take out a Underground River. So there's no cards for Mike right now, but like still the Dreadnought is going to come back into play.
Oh wait, we got a race though. He's going to take 6 right now, right? It puts him down to 2. He's dead in his next turn.
Right. So is there anything
There's
that
not,
Mike can do from right? The life totals are low, but
yeah, he got untap and he just says go, and he just unless he.
is there? I mean,
Oh, perfect. No come back from that. Nice one.
Stifle is the card, and like Chain of Smog is just the insurance that he needed. So Peter able
Say
to
die in your upkeep.
Yep. That Dreadnought will not be able to attack, and so
Interesting.
Peter's able to take down this match. Yeah, like the disruption from the mono black Pit Rack deck is very potent against what the HermitNought deck is trying to do, but Mike was just not able to figure out a way that he could kill Peter in time. It was very close, but yes.
Yeah, that second rack really adds the clock. Like that is a big difference between taking, if it's 1 or 2 to 2 to 4 to 6. Are they kind of count out? What are they trying to count out? I wonder. Is there a debate about life total? I don't think so.
I think they're just maybe talking about their sideboard plans or kind of what they wanted to do during the game.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah, I think that I was surprised to see any Innocent Bloods or Diabolic kind of. But I think he did have a good hand. I mean, what do you have? The Cabal Therapy and the chance for the turn 1 pit again. I mean, turn 1 pit is hard to say no to. But
yeah, it's pretty impressive. Like I think like the cards you think about, like when you talk about the Pit Rack deck against the HermitNought deck is like Innocent Blood, and when those aren't present, and the Pit Rack deck is still able to take the match is kind of a testament that like the disruption is enough. Like even like I mean like the Hermit Druid like deck seems so condensed that like everything is going to happen in the first few turns, and like if you're not able to answer it right away, you're just going to die. And the Pit Rack deck did a good job of like disrupting it just enough so that it could take the match.
So interesting that you see that he took out the Plague Spitters for the Engineer Plagues. Isn't Plague Spitter just better? It can flashback to Cabal Therapy. It can. I mean, it still hits the Hermit Druid. It's a clock itself. It doesn't die to Naturalize.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of what the benefits of the Engineer Plague. Shallow Grave, I guess, is the consideration. Like you're able to Shallow Grave a Hermit Druid and activate its ability against a Plague Spitter as compared to an Engineer Plague.
Right.
That's really the only thing I can think of.
So what did Mike do then? He just took out the Lim-Dul's Vault? Interesting. And the Unmasks?
Lim-Dul's Vault.
He boarded in way more cards than that.
I guess Lim-Dul's Vault is like an awkward card because, like, yes, it is very good against like the pinpoint hand disruption, but like if a card like Bottomless Pit is in play, it's very difficult to set up a Lim-Dul's Vault that is going to gain you advantage because you need multiple draw steps and you're going to be discarding cards from your hand. So, interesting they took those out, but I can understand that from some perspective.
Yeah, it's an interesting match. I would definitely very interesting. I like seeing it. One is definitely the control, quote unquote, down even though combo, but it definitely has it's asking some big questions right away. That need to be answered. In some way, shape, or form. So very cool. Good one.
All right. So that is the conclusion of our match against the Pit Rack deck against the HermitNought deck. The Pit
Mm-hmm.
Rack is able to take things down. And so I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you, Jared, for joining us in this match and providing
Happy
your
to do it.
wonderful insight. And
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
yeah, so I want to thank everyone for their support and keep in tune for the Premodern Super Gauntlet as we are moving on to our round of 32 as we will quickly approach our champion. So if you haven't filled out a bracket, I think there will be a bracket to um, fill out. I don't know if it is the top 16 or top 8, but
I guess text.
at some point there will be another bracket to fill out for all those players who missed the original or didn't do so well in the original 64, which is understandable. But
Mm-hmm.
we have still a lot of Magic to be played to crown our Gauntlet champion, and just want to thank everyone who is able to watch. And until next time, take care.
Take care, guys.